Hello everybody, my name is Cole Doherty and I will be presenting drug overdose deaths in Connecticut from 2012 to 2018. Outline of this, I will first explain the dataset, how I came across it, what exactly made me choose it, and if there was any wrangling I had, and the organization of the dataset and how it was broken down. Next, I'll have the three initial questions. I'll go over what three questions I had before making the dataset, and if these changed over time, if they got answered and whatnot. Finally, next I will explain the visualizations and the discoveries I made within those visualizations. And then finally, I will conclude with a take-home message that I want you to get out of my presentation. So the structure of the dataset is broken down into different subcategories. So whether that be age, race, sex, where you lived when you died, to these certain drugs, and or how you died, things like that. Um, and it shows a bunch of different residents in Connecticut, the drug that they died to, age, race, sex, all of those different categories. And the inspiration I drew behind this is I didn't really like any of the data sets that were given to us originally, so I went through Kaggle and I finally found one that was interesting, and I came across drug overdose deaths in Connecticut, and I saw there was a lot of different subcategories, and I knew I could easily compare it to one another and have lots of data, so I chose that one. There was no wrangling. I didn't have to clean up any of the data. It was pretty clean. Yeah. So my first three questions I had before making the visualizations was between each of the drugs, which has the highest amount of deaths. The next one was, do females or males have a higher death rate? And finally, which race has the highest amount of drug overdose deaths? I will explain in detail if these get answered as I go along through each visualization. So how I made the graphs, originally for each drug, essentially, I filtered it by color. So the higher the amount of deaths was red, and I used a red, green, gold diverging color scheme. So the higher the amount of deaths, it is displayed as red, and the lower amount of deaths is displayed by green. And that's consistent throughout all of the graphs. So they're all made through Tableau. This first graph shows the total overdose deaths for 4 different drugs in Connecticut, and the top 3 drugs are fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. And I will be explaining almost all of these drugs, all of the visualizations from here on out will show between cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl, because those are the top 3 drugs that are abused in Connecticut, so I'm interested to see the difference between each 3. Fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine fentanyl and heroin induced deaths among cities in Connecticut. It is shown that Hartford has the highest death rate. Makes sense to me because Hartford is actually the highest population in Connecticut. This one shows counties, and ironically it is Hartford again, which is also a county, and New Haven. These are the 2 highest populous counties in Connecticut, so it makes sense. This one shows the male and female heroin to fentanyl deaths over the course of the 6-year span, and as you can see, males have a much higher death rate, amount of deaths compared to females who don't even break over 200 for 6 years between fentanyl and heroin. This one is a fun pie chart I made, and it shows heroin in the city of Hartford, where the specific individuals died, and it shows it's mostly in a hospital and in a residence. Amount of cocaine deaths. So the next 3 graphs show the amount of cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl deaths within an age range, a specific age range. And for cocaine, quite interestingly, it is in the 40 to 50-year-old range. That's where the most deaths occur for cocaine. For heroin, it is a little bit younger, for about in the range of 20s to 30s, and that's the same for fentanyl. It's in the 20s to 30s as well. This graph shows the amount of deaths for fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine within the 6-year span to see if there was anything trending downward or upward, and it is shown that fentanyl is trending upward, while heroin has trended upward and now is slowly declining, and cocaine has flattened out a little bit over the 6-year span. It'd be interesting to see within up until 2022 to see if any of these have changed with the opioid crisis. Maybe compare opioids to cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl. Maybe it surpasses fentanyl with this through this 6-year span. I wouldn't be surprised. Fentanyl deaths for different races. It shows that white people have the highest amount of fentanyl deaths, and this is a little bit biased because most people that live in Connecticut are white, so it would make sense that white people abuse this drug the most. So essentially, all three of my original questions became more and more clear and were answered while I made these different graphs, but some of them were not like this one, were a little bit biased. Could be different if I did a different state other than Connecticut, but for Connecticut, most people that live there are white, so it is a little bit biased. So a little conclusion for the take-home message I want to make clear is that white middle-aged men who live in the most populous cities in Connecticut, which are Hartford, Bridgeport, and New Haven, have the highest drug overdose deaths in Connecticut compared to any other demographic. And finally, I just want to make clear, don't do drugs. You see how many people die. It's bad. Thank you.